We've all dreamed about it. Ditching the 9 to 5, moving to an exotic location, and traveling the world. Derek Barron actually did it, and is still doing it, 27 years after he called his parents from Southeast Asia and told them he's never coming home. Now, before you send out an FU email to your boss and start scanning flights to Bali, you're going to want to listen to Derek's take on his nomadic life. He has no regrets, but he also warns this life is not for everyone. Living out of a suitcase ain't easy, and maintaining close relationships when you're never in one place for more than a few weeks is a full-time job in itself. But man, what a ride he's had. Derek lives in a way that seems deeply connected to who he wants to be. He's curious, loves human connection, and has built 2 tourism businesses under the name Wandering Earl that not only support his lifestyle, but share his passion for unconventional adventures with the world. Sign up for one of his tours and you won't be seeing the typical sights. You may catch a glimpse of a levitating car or spend an afternoon snooping through Saddam Hussein's old palace, though. The takeaway I got from all of this: do the thing your soul calls you to do, even if your brain and the brains of your friends and family are screaming at you to do something else. You never know where things may lead. And if you're wondering where the name Wandering Earl comes from, you'll just have to listen to find out. Welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast, the show where we cut through the BS and find ways to make work more fun, more human, and less ridiculous. All of which makes your business more profitable, by the way. If you enjoy this one, please like, share, rate, review, or subscribe to the podcast. Let the desuckifying begin. Here's Derek. Okay, Derek Barron, welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast.
All right, man. Super happy to be here. Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you here. You've got a pretty fascinating story. And before we dive too deep, I'd love you to give us maybe the Cliff Notes version of kind of who you are and what you're doing in the world.
Sure. Yeah, I pretty much, I'll go back very quickly, but when I started at university, I studied abroad 1 semester in Australia.
Okay.
And that clicked something in my head. I was just like, there really is more out there than what, I was used to back home.
Mm-hmm.
And that completely changed the trajectory of my life. I went back to the US. I graduated university and was planning to be a sports agent.
Okay.
Had the job lined up and everything. I was supposed to be out in LA and get started with work.
Yeah.
I just had something in my head that said, let's take a little trip first. So I decided on a 3-month trip to Southeast Asia, and that was in 1999. And 2 weeks into that trip, I called my parents and said, I'm not coming home.
Wow.
I'm going to travel forever. And I didn't really believe it at the time, but we are now in 2026. I have literally traveled forever since then.
That's amazing.
And over the years, started a travel blog, and eventually that turned into a couple of tour businesses that I run. So we run small group tours all over the world, and I'm still on the road most of the time. And
wow.
Yeah, it's been an interesting path for sure.
That's amazing. I mean, I know you've got a site, and it's, I think, under the heading Wandering Earl, and it kind of just basically describes the life you've lived and and I think some of the work you do with the tours and everything. And I think to your point, I think a lot of people maybe say some version of that, maybe even just jokingly, like, I'm on vacation, I'm never coming home.
Yeah.
And then there's maybe a small subset of people who believe like, I may never come home. And then they stay a little longer and then they eventually come home.
Yeah.
And then here you are, 27 years later, and you really haven't come home. I mean, what flipped the switch for you when you were on your trip?
Yeah, for sure. I think, it was interesting. When I was in Australia, I met a lot of other exchange students from other countries.
Mm-hmm.
And that is sort of what made me realize, okay, there's Australia, but there's now a whole lot more to explore. And so when I went out to explore it, I just thought I'd see some cool stuff, get back and get in the work. But
yeah,
Honestly, it came down for me, it came down to two things. Meeting people that I realized I would never meet if I wasn't traveling. And
Mm,
that concept, especially as a young guy, that
yeah.
concept fascinated me. And I was like,
Hmm.
wow, there's so many fascinating people out here that I'll never meet if I don't get out there and somehow find them.
Yeah.
The other thing was opportunity. I
Hmm.
quickly realized when I was started traveling, even within those 2 weeks, I was just seeing all kinds of work options that I never considered. I saw what
Hmm.
local people were doing, even if it was somebody, a street vendor.
Yeah.
That wasn't something that I was familiar with. And
Hmm.
then I would meet other travelers, and travelers were doing all kinds of different stuff, whether it was miners back in Australia to, people working on cruise ships to all kinds
Hmm.
of stuff I was hearing about that I never thought about. And that triggered something where I was like, huh, do I want to be stuck in an office in LA, or
Yeah.
maybe I could figure out one of these opportunities or a few of them myself. And that's
Yeah.
that's sort of what made the change.
Huh. It's a really interesting perspective because I think for a lot of people, it might be like you become aware of that and you go, I'm not sure I'm cut out for those jobs, right? Like for a lot of
Yeah,
folks, I mean, especially like sports agent, like it sounds like a pretty cool,
yeah,
sexy job. It's kind of
yeah,
like, okay, it's not like you were, kind of leaving a, you know, filing
right,
job or something like that on the table. It was
totally.
like something that a lot of people would think was cool. So that's fascinating that even in the midst of like a pretty decent career
Mhm.
option, you were like, I kind of want to see all this. I'm
Yeah.
curious, how was that conversation with your folks when you said, "Hey, I'm not coming home"?
Not well. Not well. It was one of those, I can't hear you anymore, because back then I had to go to like one of these international calling shops in the middle of
Right.
Cambodia where you like this receipt comes out of the phone
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I was just telling them they were not thrilled, let's put it
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
Understandably, and
Yeah.
I didn't think about it at the time, but I was like, I don't know why this sounds like such a bad idea. But
Yeah.
obviously, as I got older, I was like, oh, I could see how that would sound like a pretty bad idea. So
Yeah.
they were just super nervous, and yeah, they weren't happy. And it took a while, obviously, until I actually was able to create my own way.
Mm-hmm.
Then everybody started to come around, and now they love it. But
Yeah.
yeah, in that beginning, it was not a fun conversation. Yeah,
Yeah. I can imagine. I would think for most parents that would be tough. It's great that folks seem to have come around to it. And
yeah,
I think what you mentioned, like when you said I'm going to travel forever, you weren't sure if you fully believed it. Like you just knew you didn't want to come home, kind of, and you were going to travel for a while. Was there a
exactly.
moment where that switched for you, where you're like, oh, I can do this?
So interesting. Yeah, once I made that decision, and it's just my nature, I was like, in my head, I was like, well, I better figure this out. Like, maybe not forever, but like, I don't like saying something and then not following
Yeah.
through. So, like, all right, this is a pretty big one. So,
Mm-hmm.
I better figure this out. So, honestly, I kept my ears and my eyes open as much as possible over the coming like 2 months, over the next 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
just trying to hear literally about as many opportunities as possible just to get started. I was literally down to my like last $500
Mm.
to my name. And
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, I just want to listen. I want to listen. And that's how everything started. I actually met somebody who said, oh, yeah, you can teach English. Go to this town, Chiang Mai, Thailand, and put up
Mm-hmm.
posters. I literally went to Chiang Mai, Thailand. I put up posters at the university saying native English speaker, happy to tutor.
Mm.
And we would have classes on the field in the grass, just conversational English. That kept me going for a while. And
Wow.
then I met a traveler who worked on cruise ships and had a contact and said, hey, if you want to be like a tour manager on a cruise ship, I can get you in. I
Mm.
ended up doing that as well. It
Wow.
literally was almost everything I've done was from other people, giving me that idea. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when it started to come into my head early on that there's just so many options out there. You just have to, find them and go after it. And this actually is possible because there's
Mm.
just so many ways to do it that I had never heard about.
Yeah.
I just don't know about all the options. So I
Mm.
just wanted to find them all.
Yeah. When did you start thinking you wanted to create your own thing?
Yeah, so when I was working on the cruise ships, I was working on and off. I'd work for like a year and then take a year off. And at one point, I worked on a cruise ship where they handed me a white my position got high enough where I had a white officer's uniform with three
Nice.
stripes. And I was looking in the mirror one day. I was like, okay, maybe I'm not going to be like a bum. You know, I won't be sleeping under the bridge like my parents thought. Uh, and that kind of clicked. You know, I might be able to just create my own thing. Like I feel like I
Yeah.
have enough. I'm starting to gain experience in all kinds of things. I've reached a level where I might be able to do something on my own. And once again, it turned out to be a friend of mine who said, "Hey, man, have you heard of these things called travel blogs?" And this was
Mm,
in like 2008, and I was like, "No, what's that?"
right.
He told me, he's like, "You should totally do it. You've been traveling for 8 years, and you
Hmm.
know." And that's how it started. I started a travel blog like within a month and started just writing the most random nonsense about my travels. And suddenly I started to grow an audience. And
Mm,
that was the first thing where I was like, whoa, people are finding this and enjoying it. And maybe
yeah.
there's something here.
Okay. So people started paying attention to your blog, and then that opened your eyes to like, maybe I could put a little tour together or something. How'd that work?
It's crazy as it sounds. It's all again listening to people. So I find
Yeah.
this is like one of my big work things is like I can think and my brain works and I think about all kinds of ideas, but generally the best ideas have come from people who are actually interested in what I do.
Mm,
And it was one summer where all of a sudden I received two messages back to back from two strangers who said, I've been following your blog. I know you go to India a lot. Can I join? They each said the same thing. Like, can I join you on your next trip to India? I would just
mm.
love to see how you travel.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, that's crazy. No, I'm sorry. I don't know you. Like,
Yeah.
I can't do that. And then I was walking down the street, and one day it just clicked. I was like, wait a minute, why don't I put together a tour that's the
Hmm.
exact same way that I would experience India, and I can
Hmm.
get 12 people together, and we can all experience it together and do all the stuff that I would do over there. And
Yeah.
that was how the whole thing started.
Hmm. That's really cool. I'm curious for you, like, because your experience with work has been very different than many folks, certainly a lot of
Hmm.
folks listening to this who are mostly either have done or are doing sort of office jobs or maybe
Hmm.
have branched off and created their own thing, but mostly in the States and mostly
Yep.
like work from home and then travel a bit. How do you think about work? Like what role is it playing in your life?
Yeah. Interestingly, like I've never been a believer that work has to be like your passion or you have
Hmm.
to. Some people think that I believe that because obviously it sounds
Yeah.
quite nice that I traveling and it's all with travel and I
Yeah.
get to do all the stuff. But I've never really been a believer in that. For me, I really like providing something that people want from me. Like I
Mm,
find I have experience in something and that can be valuable to other people. And I really get enjoyment and satisfaction from being able to use my life experiences to make others say happy or to give them, you know, some benefit. And
yeah.
I feel like everybody has that, you know, I can learn from everybody and people
Hmm.
can learn from me and that's how it works. And that's honestly with the travel, that's really it comes down to the connections with these people
Hmm.
and being able to provide something that they wouldn't be able to do on their own and knowing that my experience is playing a role in creating some really special experiences for other people.
Yeah. The way you describe it, I mean, it's interesting because you're not talking about it through the lens of passion, but there's an emotional connection there that I hear.
Hmm.
It's like maybe a certain amount of joy and satisfaction from the connecting and the helping, right?
Yeah.
And when I think about work, for most of us, that's the key,
Hmm.
right? Like, is there some emotional reward to the work we do? Is it connecting to a part of us that
Yep. Absolutely.
gives us some juice? Like it certainly sounds like for you, the helping is a big thing, and the connection seemed really big for you. Even just the way you experienced travel initially, it sounds like all about. I met these really interesting people with these interesting stories, right? So I like that framing of
Hmm.
the way you think about work. I'm curious, because now that you're traveling for 27 years here, like Was this something that you felt like was part of you when you were younger? Like, did you have a bit of a wandering personality?
It's
Did you enjoy your trips as a kid? Like, how was that for you?
Yeah, that's interesting because I had an uncle that worked for a hotel chain and
Hmm.
basically like high up in a hotel chain, and where that was our vacations. Wherever he was stationed, because he would go to a hotel for like a year and they would move him somewhere else.
Hmm.
Wherever he was stationed in the US, that's where we would go. And
Nice.
I do remember just the awe of landing in a place, even if it was, I mean, no offense to Cherry Hill, New Jersey,
Yeah.
or Palm Springs, or out in Arizona, and all these. I
Yeah.
remember in Knoxville, Tennessee, and all this stuff. And
Hmm.
I remember being like, it wasn't so much about the destination, it was more about I was here and I have this life experience in this place, but
Hmm.
there's this whole other place that operated totally independently of my experiences,
Yeah.
and that I always just got a kick out of that as a young person, that there's
Hmm.
just so much out there. And I definitely think that that played a role, because even in my university I actually went to school in Atlanta, but then
Okay.
I transferred to another school in Massachusetts, then I went abroad to Australia,
Okay.
then back to the US to finish. I feel like there was a pattern there.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah. I mean, I I like that you were aware of it as a kid because I think for some of us, like, we almost don't even listen to that because we're so already, by the time we're in school, we're sort of trained
Yeah.
to keep kind of a narrow view of the world, right?
Absolutely. I always remember something triggering, even like when my friends would talk about going to school and what they were going to study. I always remembered like being like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. And I think that's
Yeah.
why it was easy for me to call my parents and say, you know what, the sports agent thing isn't for me, because it probably wasn't for me from the
Yeah.
beginning,
Yeah.
obviously. And that was just when I was a bit 10,000 miles away, it was a bit easier to
Yeah.
to tell them.
Exactly. All right. I'm going to go to the opposite side of the
Yeah,
world to tell my parents this.
just for
Yeah.
that one phone call. Yeah.
I like it. So I imagine people are listening to this and some people are probably going, wow, it sounds crazy. But there's probably a portion of people who are like, either I wish I did that or I want to do something like that now. What do you say to folks who are thinking about shifting their life in a significant way like that, whether they're early 20s or mid
Yeah.
40s or, mid 60s, like, but for if they've got a little bit of the bug, what do you feel like you need to tell them about this
Yeah,
experience?
for sure. I mean, I think the most important thing, which is the case with anything, is to not just copy,
Hmm.
is to really take the time to figure out what, because obviously a lot of things in life sound sexy and sound great,
Yeah.
but if you actually stop for a minute, it might not actually align
Hmm.
with what we really want. And I think that's something I've had plenty of emails from people who said, "Oh man, I quit my job and I'm taking off." And then 2 months later, they're like, "Ah, this is crazy. I can't believe you've been traveling like this. I'm going home and getting a job. Like this is
Hmm.
nuts." So
Yeah.
I feel like the good news is there's a million different ways to do it. And
Hmm.
I think that's the important thing, is to really think what would be the best sort of structure for you,
Yeah.
and also not to make any rash decisions. Like I will say that part of my story is something I generally don't advise.
Yeah.
I got a bit lucky, I'll say, in the beginning, but it's making a rash decision. I wouldn't quit a job just to go out and figure it out while
Mm.
you're
Yeah.
out there in the world. That generally doesn't go well. It's better
Yeah.
to have a plan, and these days it's much easier to have a plan or to try and create some work that you can take with you wherever you
Right.
go. And I
Hmm.
feel like a solid year of planning will is well worth it, just to make sure with whatever structure you come up with, it actually aligns and it has a much higher chance of working out.
Yeah. I mean, it is a very different world now. I mean, there was a bit of a nomadic lifestyle emergence sort of during the COVID period because there was so much remote work, and some of that's shifted back, although there's certainly still a lot more
For sure.
remote
Yeah.
work now than there used to be. So I've definitely seen people, even people that I've worked with in coaching who are in corporate jobs now, who have said,
Mhm.
yeah, I took a year and I just traveled while I
That's
was
right. Yep.
working
That's right.
for,
Yep.
some consulting firm.
Yep. Totally. Yep.
And I'm
Yep.
like,
It's
that's
possible.
like a nicer way an easier way, it feels like, to dip your toe into it.
Yeah.
But I do think there's probably a small subset of people who are like, I don't care what he says. I feel like I just want to rip the Band-Aid off and
Yeah,
go
just go
because
for
they
it.
want the full emotional
Totally.
experience of like abject terror of like, where's my next dollar gonna come from? Like
Yeah.
the whole thing. Yeah.
And honestly, it's not, I'm not 100% against it because
Yeah.
you obviously learn a lot about yourself, and that's certainly one avenue to
Yeah.
figure out what you want next in life is to just throw yourself out there and
Yeah.
go to town and see where you land. So I feel like, especially with all the experiences that you would have overseas or wherever
Mm-hmm.
you travel,
Yeah.
so that's definitely a path. I would just
Yeah. Think
just think
about it a little
think
bit.
first. Yeah, think
Yeah.
first, just because.
Yeah.
When I start talking even about like the negative stuff of my lifestyle with, I literally live out of a suitcase
Mm-hmm.
300 days of the year. Maybe I put my stuff in a drawer 30 days of the year somewhere. So
Mm-hmm.
like, that or, just the general connections with friends, things like this, much harder. So there's definitely downsides that a lot of people don't think about when they just focus on the awesomeness of just bouncing around and seeing the world.
Yeah. I wanna explore some of that stuff a little bit. I mean, one before we do, one thought I was wondering about, you mentioned like it gives you a chance to get to know yourself.
Hmm.
And I do think one of the reasons that this kind of lifestyle is attractive to people is because if you, well, let's say the alternate universe version of you that became a sports agent and stayed in LA and like maybe even generally enjoyed it. Like, yeah,
Hmm.
it was pretty cool. Had some fun
Yeah,
moments, got to
for
go to
sure.
some cool events. But a lot of people who follow that kind of path will wake up at usually 40 something and kind of
Yeah.
go like, who am I? Like, I've just been sort of following the playbook for
Hmm.
so long that when you start to think, well, what's the next phase of my life look like? There is that real moment of like, oh my God,
Yeah.
who am I? Right. So however you do it at some point in your life, and it might be nice to do when you're younger, at least to some degree, I think there's
Hmm.
something really interesting about giving yourself room to try to connect to like, who am I really? What do I really care about? You know?
For sure. I think
Yeah.
it's super important. Even now, even being on the road, I still check in with myself quite
Yeah.
often. That's always been something that I really feel is important. And whether it doesn't matter whether you're traveling or not traveling, just to make sure we are on,
Hmm.
aligned with what we want. And I think, yeah, heading out there and having these experiences certainly helps you figure it out, possibly even more, just because
Yeah.
you're going to be in situations that you have never been in and meet people you never would have thought you'd meet. And all that adds up to just testing yourself and having new
Hmm.
ideas. Yeah, it can be extremely beneficial.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's just something about putting ourselves in situations that stress us a bit
Hmm. Yeah,
to just understand like, where are my edges? You
yeah,
know, where
definitely,
am I willing to go?
100%.
Where am I not? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
You mentioned the living out of the suitcase, that kind of lifestyle. I mean, what is the toughest part of being kind of a nomad?
Yeah, it's definitely community, like my community of friends who are scattered all
Hmm.
over, and I guess the effort required, which is totally fine. I'm putting it in, that's for sure, because I don't want to
Yeah.
give it up to maintain connections.
Mm,
So for me, that generally involves flying all over the place. So I
yeah.
go to Lisbon whenever I can because I have a lot of friends there,
Okay.
and I got to show up. If you're not there, connections are pretty hard to maintain. So I
Hmm.
have a lot of places where I really want to be there and to show up and maintain connections, and it's hard because obviously I have other stuff going on that takes me to other places, and
Hmm.
it can be long stretches without without actually being fully embedded in a proper community, which I
Yeah.
definitely recognize is a huge benefit of not living this lifestyle.
Yeah. I can imagine that. I would think that would
Yeah.
be a fear for some people that you would
Hmm.
lose contact. I love to hear that you're sort of making the effort
Yeah.
and in a real way, like, because I I have friends kind of scattered because I've moved a few times, and it is
Hmm.
tough if you're
Yeah.
just sort of relying on phone or even Zoom. to
Yeah,
keep those connections. I mean, I think it keeps it to a degree, but it's those moments where you get to like be with somebody even for a day
absolutely.
that
Yeah,
like just completely fills the tank back up.
completely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Is there is there some kind of community connection amongst folks who live like you do? Is there a bond that forms, or is that a romanticized idea?
Yeah. The thing
Yeah.
is, first, I will always say there's not so many people doing this as it may seem. Most
Yeah.
people move somewhere overseas. So there's
Mm-hmm.
big communities. People talk about all the digital nomads or nomads in Bangkok or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, 99% of them live in
Live
Bangkok.
there.
So
Yeah.
they stay there.
Mm-hmm.
Or Lisbon. If I look at my friends in Lisbon, none of them are not one of them are a nomad.
Okay.
They're not Portuguese necessarily, so
Yeah.
they've moved there, but they are there because they like it there and
Mm.
that's where they're living and they work online or whatever.
Okay.
So I feel like that part is
Yeah.
there's a connection for sure. I can show up. I was just in Bangkok for 2 months and
Mm-hmm.
I can go to co-working spaces or all kinds of meetup events and meet all kinds of people who like travel and who work online and stuff, but of course, then you go. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
not, it's the same thing as if you're back home in the US. Like,
Yeah.
if you're not there,
Yeah.
yeah. And the
Okay.
amount of people who are actually bouncing around like nonstop, it's not as many as people
Yeah.
might
Okay.
think
That
for
is
good reason
interesting.
because it gets a bit, yeah,
Yeah.
it's challenging.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the most interesting place that you've seen?
The most interesting place. Well, right now, oh man, there's a lot, but right now we actually run tours to Iraq.
Hmm. Okay.
And I've been 11 times in the last 3 years because it's so interesting because it's the top country by far that I've been to that is the complete opposite of what people imagine
Okay.
in
How
terms of,
so?
say, safety,
Okay.
hospitality, food, everything. And
Mm.
it's so fascinating. I'm actually going again in 5 days, so I'll be there to check on
Mm.
our team over there.
Okay.
And that to me is exactly it actually represents why I travel is because I
Yeah.
go there firsthand, I meet people, I see all these people that say we're supposed to be afraid of or that we think are going to hate us, and it turns out to be the complete opposite
Mm.
in the most absurd way where you can barely even spend money there because people are going to
Wow.
if you were to go and sit down and have a falafel sandwich somewhere, somebody in that restaurant is going to pay for your meal when they
That's
see that you're
amazing.
a foreigner. Like there's
Wow.
and that's going to happen every day. So to me right now, that's like the most fascinating place that I've been
Yeah.
recently just because it's not what people expect.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely throws me a little bit. I'm like, okay, I don't
Yeah.
think I expected that. What what is the part the plate like I guess I'll reframe this. What is the like if you're bringing somebody on a tour of Iraq, like what
Mhm.
how are you selling that? Because for some people they might be like maybe not sure if like that doesn't
For
sound
sure.
so what's the two or three sentence pitch for Iraq?
The 2 or 3 sentence pitch is actually we would never run a tour that would put our guests in danger.
Yeah.
And that basically, the people who come, they trust me from
Yeah.
previous tours or knowing my travels for the last 25 years. And that's pretty much the pitch. It's not
Yeah.
about Iraq. I'm not going to convince somebody to go who hasn't thought about it,
Yeah.
basically,
Mm-hmm.
or thinks that it is completely dangerous.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. So it's really people who, man, it would be so awesome to go there. It would be really fascinating.
Yeah.
And for them to just know that, and they know, we absolutely would not run a trip if I wouldn't take my mom there. Like
Right.
literally that's what I tell people. Like if I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
take my mom there, I wouldn't run a trip. And I know that to some people that still sounds absurd for
Yeah.
Iraq, but that's the reality and
Mm.
that's the reality.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening. If you're liking what you hear and like the idea of making work not suck, I invite you to schedule a free half-hour discovery session. What would make your work culture more human? Let's talk about it. All right, back to the show. What's your favorite spot within Iraq?
So within Iraq is probably Hatra.
Okay.
Hatra is these ancient ruins, that a mix of Greek Roman ruins. It's a city that's about 3,000 years old, and it's just
Wow.
sitting in the middle of nowhere. And if it was any other country, it would be bus after bus after bus of tourists seeing this amazing
Hmm.
place. And
Yeah.
if you go, you're probably though maybe there'll be a few Iraqi tourists there,
Hmm.
but apart from that, it's just sitting out there in the middle of nowhere, and it is absolutely stunning.
Wow. I mean, this seems like an interesting, like a big part of like the way you operate. You've had this unique perspective on the world. You've given yourself opportunities to see the stuff that most people don't see and maybe experience it in ways that most people
Mhm.
don't, which I think is a really cool gift that you end up giving people, right? Because for some people, the standard tour of whatever is
Mhm.
exactly what they want. It's like that
Yeah, totally.
just
Yeah,
sort of taste.
absolutely.
But for folks who have that curiosity of like, what is it really like
Yeah,
in Iraq or India or all these other places you go? It feels like that's what you're creating. Does that
that's
part is that part of
100%
it?
it.
Yeah.
It's people who want to know, like, okay, this guy's been traveling for 27 years, and I talk about it all the time on my website and my newsletter. You know, all about the people that I meet, even not just the travelers, but the local people that I meet and all of the connections that I've made and all it's just incredible all over. And that's what my travels are based on. So we actually don't even run tours. We only run tours in countries where I actually have local connections that I've made over the years that can
Mm-hmm.
help us arrange stuff that no other tour can do.
Okay.
So
Wow.
that's kind of the idea. So these are
Yeah.
all through my local connections and places that tours don't even go. Like even in India, we go to some places nobody would go, but my friend lives there. We
Yeah.
go. He sets up some amazing stuff for us, and I think that's what people know they're going to get. They're okay if we skip some main highlights. That's not the point. The point they know is that we're going
Mm-hmm.
to really do some unique, rewarding experiences because it's based on my actual personal connections that I've made over the years.
Yeah. So what would be something like this friend in India that you've
Yeah.
made? What what's an example of an experience that you get to have with people there?
Sure. So I was just there in November, and there's a village outside, a very small village outside of the town where my friend lives. And
Mm-hmm.
every year they have a festival for this village with no outsiders allowed. And what they
Mm.
do is it's like a magic festival. So
Okay.
cars are levitating and tractors are balancing on eggs. There's fountains shooting water with supposedly no hose attached to them.
Right.
It's just a whole street of the craziest things you've ever seen.
Yeah. Wow.
And no foreigners are allowed to go. And we got permission to go. So we were the first ones there. It was actually a photography group that we took. And
Wow.
we were able to go into this village, and the people were amazing.
Hmm.
We got permission, and we were able to hang out with so many families and join in the procession, and
Hmm.
just something that literally nobody's done, nobody's ever done, and that's kind of an example of what.
Wow.
Even in Iraq, we get access to one of Saddam Hussein's abandoned palaces, and almost anybody can get to the ground floor, but we actually, through our connections, they unlock the gate inside, and we're able to go to the second and third floors and onto the roof, and
Really?
it's quite spectacular. So that's like another example of
That's
something.
cool. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, like two different versions of very cool. One of which like is like connected to something that's very sort of historic and
Hmm.
well known, and then another which is like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What is this? You
Yeah.
know, which is like there is a charm to that, especially in a world where we feel like we know everything about everything because of social
Mhm.
media and all that.
Of course.
Like the ability to still get under the belly of
Yeah.
the world.
100%. That's
Yeah.
totally like my goal. I always think about I talk about it with my team all the time when we're creating tours. Is like, if you were just following Instagram, what would you do? And then we push that aside and start from scratch without any of those kind of
Mm.
ideas. So yeah.
Who's the most interesting person you've met?
The most interesting person. That's probably that's this was I so one day I was in the Abu Dhabi airport,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just sitting there drinking a coffee, and I turn around and accidentally step on this very small Buddhist nun's foot pretty hard. And I was like, okay. So we just start chatting. We're just chatting for an hour. She's like, oh, I'm flying to Australia. I was like, I'm flying to Australia. We were on
Mm-hmm.
different flights. Anyway, it turns out she is this famous walking nun who walks all over the world for
Hmm.
peace and for local like indigenous communities and for all good things. And she's been doing it her whole life. And we just
Wow.
started having this conversation. She was obviously very humble and didn't mention much. I
Mm-hmm.
got to Australia and I started looking her up and I was like, you got to be kidding me. And like she's very well known. And I ended up meeting her on one of her walks. She walked across Australia. So I went out with a friend and we met her in the middle of nowhere and
Mm-hmm.
started just chatting again. She recognized me instantly.
Mm-hmm.
And she was one of the most fascinating women because I think I like connection. I like connection with people. And I was like, wow, I'm traveling a lot. Like I'm meeting all these people. And then
Yeah.
I met her and I was like, okay, this is a totally different level because she's walking through places that literally
Yeah.
no tourists ever go. And the story she had and all about how she was affected by people around the world. To me personally, it was just, it's been one of the most fascinating things. And we've kept in touch over the years. So it's been, yeah, been great.
That's cool. Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's just so the lifestyle you lead, I feel like increases the surface area for those kinds of
Yeah,
weird encounters, right? Stepping on somebody's
totally.
foot. Sorry, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oops.
let's talk, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Who or which people or culture have you met have the best sense of humor or the most
Best sense of
unexpected
humor.
sense of humor? Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I spend a lot of time in Romania, and they have
Yeah.
a very self-deprecating,
Mm,
dry humor
yeah.
about themselves, about life, about how they grew up, about you know, about the country in general, and
Mm-hmm.
that at least vibes with my style of
Yeah.
humor, and I find it real. They're really funny. They're really smart people.
Mm-hmm.
They're very well read, and it's just it's a very intelligent like, kind of humor, and I find it, yeah, it's really, really funny
Yeah.
to encounter.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. I like that kind of humor as well. I mean, Romania is one of those places I feel like exists just on the outskirts of most Americans'
Yeah,
knowledge, like particularly like if you just look at Europe, right? We
yeah,
tend to know, Western Europe fairly
hmm
well, at least we feel like we do. We've got a story
yeah,
about it. And then there's certain countries the further east you move that have had something happen or whatever that
yeah,
brings them to the foreground. I think of a country like Poland, for me
for
growing
sure.
up, you know, Lech Walesa, I think was his name, the
Mhm.
big labor guy.
Yep,
Like there were moments in some of these places. And then like Romania, just, I'm like, I don't know anything about Romania.
Dracula. That's all it
That's kind
gets.
of the only
Dracula,
thing,
and they're
right?
rolling with it. They're rolling
Yeah.
with it. So
Yeah. Yes. I mean, what's something about like Romania that's, I mean, it sounds like you've gone there a lot. What
yeah.
beyond the cool sense of humor that people have, what's something that most of us probably don't know about Romania that might be interesting to know?
Yeah, for sure. I would say, A, it's one of the most beautiful countries in Europe by far. Most of it
Yeah.
is mountainous and it's just
Mm-hmm.
like, and it's very untouched. There's a lot of protected land. It's just gorgeous everywhere.
Yeah.
And I would say the most fascinating thing for me is that, which you find this in Europe, where you'll have traditional style villages and more modern cities, of
Mm-hmm.
course. But the
Yeah.
difference is in Romania, traditional villages can still be like we actually just had a tour there last week, and we went to a village that doesn't use any money. So they only barter. So if you
Mm.
have cheese and you have chickens, that's it. And it's all community. If someone's working on a project, they all chip in. They get around on horse carts
Mm.
in one of the most gorgeous locations you will ever see.
Yeah.
But 30 minutes away is a city with nightclub bars
Really?
and I mean it's still a medieval city, but still it's more
Right.
modern and it still has like a what do you call it, a Carrefour, like a European
Mm-hmm.
Walmart.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think the contrast there is just a little bit more intense than I've
Yeah.
seen in any other European country,
Mm-hmm.
which is fascinating. And you can go to these small villages and you know, everybody has a sign on their door saying, homemade wine, and you just knock on the door and you can buy their homemade wine that they make, or, again, just like very, very simple, very traditional, a lot of still traditional crafts that they're not doing for tourists, that they're literally still doing for themselves.
Mm.
But then again, if you want to go party that night,
Yeah. It's
you're
not
not far
far.
away. Like it's so it's just like it kind of
That's
is a bit of
wild.
a, yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty wild. Um,
What about the food? I don't know anything about Romanian food.
the food is heavy.
Yeah.
It definitely lives up to that Eastern European. A lot of
Yeah.
meat and maybe less vegetables
Okay. Okay.
than some might like.
Yeah.
But I think the difference there is they're not. Obviously, it's changing like everywhere, but it's not like mass produced a lot. So even a lot of restaurants, they're still making it just very fresh, just like would be made at home.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot. Majority of the time, you're going to get pretty home cooked meals that a lot of the ingredients came from people's gardens right there. So I think from
Nice.
that standpoint, I
Mm.
love it. Like that, I always love, crazy looking tomatoes that are so delicious and
Hmm.
all this, just all that stuff you can get even in the city. Like you'd never
Yeah.
have to buy, groceries from a supermarket if you don't want to
Okay.
and really eat well.
Okay. How does
So,
language
yeah.
work with all this? I mean, 27 years of travel. I mean, do you know a lot of languages at this point? How did that work for you?
You just figure it out. Like it's just like just experience. You figure it out. Whether it's I speak Spanish quite decently. My Romanian friends will tell me my Romanian level is about maybe a 6 year old.
Okay.
It's just good enough.
Good enough. Yeah. Yeah.
But you just kind of figure it out. Like you kind of just read people's faces. You just over all this time with just being in countries that where English is not the language. It's you just figure it out. And I feel
Mm.
like it's I read an interesting study where if it was an interesting study, they brought people to China and they said, okay, different combinations. It was a Romanian person and a Chinese. If they tried to speak English, it didn't work. If the Romanian person spoke Romanian and the Chinese person spoke Mandarin, they communicated much better. So
Really?
it's
Wow.
yeah, like the results of like the questions and the answers were much higher than if they both tried to speak like
That's
broken English. Yeah.
fascinating. Yeah.
So
Huh.
you just figure it out.
Something
Yeah,
about us being comfortable with our communication maybe
exactly.
creates
And
the
more
full
natural.
expression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more natural, and some of those expressions are,
Universal.
global, so we figure
Yeah.
it out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow, that's really cool. I don't think I've ever heard that before. What we talked a little bit about kind of learning about who we are. What have you learned about yourself through this lifestyle?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely learned, as we pointed out, that I get my satisfaction in life, my joy in life from connection, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's been a huge thing, and I take that to my work.
Yeah.
I also have learned that, like, just to bring it to work, like, work is important, and it doesn't have to be the most perfect thing, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't mind working. I actually prefer to work and have the results and
Mm-hmm.
help that, facilitate and be in a line, help facilitate the lifestyle that suits me the best.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy it. Like I don't, some people are like, oh, but you spend like that whole week was on your laptop, and I get it, and I don't do it every week, like
Yeah.
staring at every day, but like I like that producing something, and I did
Mm-hmm.
learn that through the travels is that I like having an idea, like I'm going to this country to gain this knowledge and
Mm-hmm.
gaining it, and it kind of translates to a lot of stuff. I like to, when I work, I sit down. This is the goal right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get to the other side, and this is the result, and boom, perfect. So
Yeah.
I do feel like having that structure is something that I've learned, and that's helped keep me sane probably over these years
I
with
can
this
see that.
chaotic lifestyle.
I think a lot of folks might imagine that wouldn't be true, that
Yep.
it would all just be sort of free flowing,
Yep.
right? Like, but
Absolutely.
I can hear it even as you're describing it. It's like, oh, okay, there's something grounding and stabilizing maybe about, okay, I'm doing
For
this
sure.
thing, I'm doing this thing, and I'm doing this thing. And it allows you to enjoy the moments of
Yep.
free flow that much
Exactly.
more. Yeah.
Exactly. And I feel like if you do go, and this is what I learned, I mean, the beginning of my travels, I just was aimless all over the place, bouncing
Yeah.
wherever. I
Hmm.
quickly learned, like, okay, we need to have a
A
we need
little
to have
bit of
a
a
reason
plan.
for doing
Yeah.
some things here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Hmm.
And again, whether it's with work or travels, having
Yeah.
that reason is definitely, yeah,
Okay.
that's kept me going for sure. Yeah.
So 27 years in, so yeah, doing the math of that. I mean, you're late 40s. Where are you?
49. Yeah.
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 Are you gonna do this forever?
Okay, mom. No.
Exactly. I mean, do you think about that? Do you
Yeah.
or is it yeah,
No, I definitely think about it. Honestly, I've been slowing down. It doesn't
yeah,
seem like it to a lot of people. Like this
yeah.
year, I've been already 15 countries or something, but I'm going to Lisbon in a few weeks, and I'll be staying there for 2.5 months, and that's like my second 2.5 month stint of the year in one
Okay.
place. So
Okay.
I realized making a full transition is going to be very difficult for me to just being
Yeah.
like, I live here now. So I'm
Yeah.
starting with this, and it's almost certain. Even with the tours, I used to lead a lot of the tours myself, but now I
Yeah.
actually don't lead them
Okay.
at all.
Okay.
So there's been adjustments because, yeah, just even it's just the toll it takes.
Yeah.
It's starting to take its toll. Let's put it that
Okay.
way.
Okay. Do you have like a sweet spot you're trying to arrive at in terms of how much stay put you have versus the travel?
I would like to set up like 8 months in one place or throughout a year and four
Yeah.
months because I still work and travel. So
Sure.
I still have a tour company, so I still need to travel, which
Yeah.
is fine. But I feel like it just comes down to what, like all the way back to the beginning of the conversation, not living out of the suitcase. Like that's
Yeah.
literally how I think about it. If my clothes are in a drawer, as simple as that sounds, the positive effect that has on my mind is
Yeah.
cannot underestimate that. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense to me, but I'm somebody who has this stuff in a drawer pretty much
Yes,
always,
and
and it's my
I've been eyeing that closet behind you. That looks pretty sweet.
you're like, that looks nice. Yeah. Uh, what be, beyond, you mentioned the clothes in the drawer. Is there anything, if you think back to before you were traveling, that you missed the most from the quote unquote normal lifestyle?
Yeah, funny. I have thought about that quite a bit, and honestly, no.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I wouldn't have created my own thing. I wouldn't have had the confidence to do it if I was kind of in a situation where I was in an office and working, and obviously I would have other work to do,
Yeah.
and I just feel like this put me in a situation where like if you want to do something different, there you go. You have no choice now that you said you're traveling forever. Let's
Yeah.
do it. And I'm extremely happy that even from right after university, that's that's the direction it went. Yeah. Apart
Okay.
from obviously missing the community aspect, but even that,
Yeah.
even with that, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change
Yeah.
it at all.
Okay.
And I'm quite happy that it turned out this way. Yeah.
So if you fast forward to, a later point in life and you think about sort of the mark maybe you've left on the world and people you've met, what do you hope that is?
Uh, yeah, I would. Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that it's that the main thing is understanding each other. I think that's the idea with our trips, with my
Yeah.
own travels, is just you gotta meet people in person and you gotta talk to them in person instead of creating all these narratives. And I genuinely feel like half the world's, I mean, it's a common thing to say, but I do feel like half the world's issues would
Mm-hmm.
dissolve immediately if different sides actually just sat down and had a chat. And I
Mm.
feel like that's what I tried to do. That's why I like bring people to Iraq or
Yeah.
to anywhere to just meet people and actually have conversations and realize, huh, we are obviously basically the same and we
Yeah.
all want the same stuff. We all want to just figure out a way to make enough money, live a happy life and have some
Mm-hmm.
friends and be healthy and that pretty much is universal and
Yeah.
the other stuff actually isn't really worth being divided over.
Mm. I love that. So I know I've asked you a number of questions here. I always like to see if the guest has a question for our audience. Do you have anything you'd like to ask the audience?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say whether you're looking at work or you're looking at potentially wanting to break out and do some travel like we talked about earlier, or get out there and just do something different, I
Yeah.
would say, if you're facing an obstacle or something that's challenging and preventing you from doing that, what would actually happen if you just stopped thinking about that challenge altogether and moved on?
Mm.
And I feel like that's something I do. I use it in work. I use it in all areas of life.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we get stuck in, thinking that a problem is bigger than it actually is.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm just like, you know what? That's it. Like, and it might be an idea that I really wanted to work, or
Hmm.
a trip that I really wanted to take, or something that I thought was going to be huge for my life, but I just couldn't figure out, and it was taking up a lot of time, maybe creating frustration. And then I just forced myself. I asked, like, what would happen if I just dropped it and moved on? And
Mm.
honestly, I don't think there's been a time where later on, I was like, that was the wrong decision. I don't think
Mm.
that's ever happened.
Yeah. I love that question. And I think what I hear behind it is a sense of like, one, it's okay to let go, but also like the the stories in our head are often not as much of our friends as we think they are. You know,
Completely.
yeah.
Completely. I remember I had an high school English teacher. Every day we'd come in and he put on the chalkboard, "Don't be afraid to kill your babies." And
Hmm.
that stuck with me. I will
Yeah.
never forget that. And I think about it all the time, even if it's something we think is the biggest opportunity, the
Yeah.
most amazing thing we're about to write, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know what? It might be worth actually just chopping it
Just,
off and
yeah.
going in a different direction. And like I said, it's pretty rare that it doesn't work out.
Yeah. So I'm curious, you have, again, it's sort of a different experience with work, but I'd love your perspective on this question. If you could wave a magic wand and
Mhm.
make the world of working fully desuckified, what does that look like?
That's good. I would say that it would it would allow people to focus more on alignment and maybe not just achievement. And
Hmm.
I think, this would make all of us more comfortable because we
Yeah.
all want different things in life. But I think we often chase a lifestyle or a version of success that we obviously, as we hear, that we think we want or that we're supposed to have, and it
Mm-hmm.
might not actually be what we want or what fits us. And
Mm-hmm.
I really believe these days, especially, there's so many opportunities to really create a lifestyle that aligns with what we actually want.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be simple or odder or quieter than what we think we're supposed to want. But I
Yeah.
feel like, I actually, if you don't mind, I'll bring it up. Just today, I had a conversation with a friend here. I'm in Turkey right now, and
Okay.
he's a tour guide, and he told me, you know what? There's all these tour guides that are working. They're doing 5 tours a day. They're doing just crazy 365 days a year, just so that they can, buy a summer house and live by the water.
Mm-hmm.
He happens to be from a town that is by the water, and his house, just because that's where the town is by
Right.
the water. And he realized early on that this is actually the lifestyle that I want. I want a simple life by the water. And so
Mm-hmm.
he works, he's comfortable, he does the work to just maintain that lifestyle. And he and his
Yeah.
family are extremely happy. And I feel like making that fully acceptable, that kind of approach,
Mm-hmm.
which is a little bit more common maybe outside the US. We're pretty
Yeah.
driven in the US to just go,
Yeah.
go, go, nonstop. But
Mm-hmm.
making that more common,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would be happier in work, and also there'd probably just be better results overall because people are
Yeah.
actually doing work that helps them live the life that they actually want to live.
Yeah. I mean, I think I love that. And I think the idea of being aligned with our work, I mean, it's something I feel connected to. It's always mattered to me. And I think it's interesting because there's this sort of paradox of we can probably achieve more by
Hmm.
being aligned. I think you were kind of getting to that with the last
Exactly.
part of your statement there. And I think macro level, like we'd probably bring more value into the world if more
Yeah.
of us were aligned with the things we do. Because I mean, I think about even your story of like sometimes I'm spending my whole week on the laptop
Yeah.
because you're aligned with your work,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
it may not be quote unquote your passion, but it's something you enjoy, and it's
Exactly.
obviously connected to a deep part of who you are. And I think that that's probably true for most of us. That like we'll we'll explore more in our
Hmm.
work when it feels like something that is aligned and connects to us, and we'll follow our curiosity more, and we'll be more creative as a result. you know?
Absolutely. Less frustrated and yeah,
Mm.
exactly. I mean, it just
Yeah.
seems like when you walk in the door, whether even if say if you go into the office, if you walk into that door into that office and you know you're going to sit down and it's going to be something that's, you're aligned with, obviously the results are going to be different than
Massive
like,
difference.
oh boy, here we go.
Yeah. I mean, I think in some ways, like, you know, when I think about desuckifying work and this podcast and even some of the work I do or like coaching people, and that's really where the biggest shift happens for people is if they can
Mhm.
find that alignment. It really
Yeah.
is often that
And I
simple.
think I think the key too is the alignment versus the passion. I always find that that's the
Yeah.
passion one always bothers me a bit because it sounds too intense and that you can always keep searching because nothing's going to really feel like your passion. So it's sort of a never-ending chase.
Yeah.
But to be aligned with something is definitely a lot more reasonable. Like the example you used with me being on the laptop, obviously that doesn't sound like a passion, but that it is aligned and it does work very well. So I feel like there's a big difference in that, and it's an important one.
Yeah. And I would even say that there's almost you can elicit some form of passion by being aligned. It's not
Hmm.
your passion. It's not the one thing that you're passionate about. It's more like the emotion of passion and energy and interest and
Hmm.
immersion.
Completely, yeah.
It all comes because you're aligned as opposed to going, I am really passionate about
Yeah.
whatever, some kind of,
Yeah.
bird and that
Right.
I love. It's like, so I must work as a bird person, whatever that is.
Yeah, totally.
I
Just for
don't know
that bird.
anything about that, but you
Couldn't
know,
tell, couldn't tell.
yeah, it was, I hit it well. Yeah. So anyway, like I do like that slight reframing. It's like find alignment and
Yeah.
then it will bring out more
Yeah.
from you.
The alignment is like the foundation. I mean, you
Yeah.
need that. You need that. And the passion is like it's almost just it's a bit too abstract to,
Yeah, it
without a
does.
foundation, it's a bit hard to
I
achieve.
agree. And
Yeah.
there's a pressure to it for sure.
Yep. Yep. Completely.
So one thing I like to do on here is have a little fun with sounds. If you've listened to my show, you hear cat
Yep.
sounds and other
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
And I always invite the guest to make a sound that will show up on the show as well. Are you game for making a
I'm
noise?
game.
And
I'm
what do you
game.
got? Yeah.
So this is just I saw it in a movie when I was a kid. I don't remember the name of the movie. When I started working later in life, it came back to me. And I use this whenever I am like getting frustrated about a problem and just to snap my brain out of it. It's very simple. It's just boop. That's it. It was somebody doing this boop, boop
Yeah.
in a movie and it stuck with me and I use that and the second I do it, okay,
It
I
just,
shift gears and it's just
yeah,
sort of something that I do for myself to get
that's
out of a
fun.
rut.
I like it. It's a fun sound, but it also like my hunch is there might be something sort of somatic about
Mhm.
just that sound that it
Just it
just
coming
like
out. Yeah.
just sort of releases something. And obviously
I
like
believe so. Like, yeah, it's
it's
hard for me
this,
to ignore, so my
yeah,
brain has to shift. Like, there's no,
yeah. Ah,
yeah,
that's really cool. So the last question I always ask people is where can people track you down online, learn more about, you know, your experiences all around the world, the tour groups you've got, all that good stuff.
yeah, cool. Yeah, I have all my social media and my blog is Wandering Earl. So
Hmm.
wanderingearl.com is the blog, and then all social media is Wandering Earl. And my
Okay.
tour company is Wandering Earl Tours. So
Okay.
wanderingearltours.com, and we have all our tours up there for, yeah, this
So
year,
I
next
guess I
year.
do have to ask, like, where did Wandering Earl come from?
That's a good one. So Earl is actually my middle name, and when I
Okay.
was in high school, once my friends found that out, Derek was gone, and everybody thought it was hilarious that a younger person was named Earl in those
Earl.
days.
Yeah.
So I became Earl pretty much through university. So
Hmm.
when I started traveling and I started the blog, I was like, Wandering Earl. I was like, a
Yeah.
big deal. Like, the only people that are going to read it are my family. So
Whoops.
unfortunately, then I became Wandering Earl. So,
Well,
yep,
it does flow. Wandering Earl.
yeah,
There's a rhythm to it that's real nice. So I'm
yeah.
kind of glad you chose that. But Derek, thank you so much for coming on this show. It's just a really fun and different perspective on what work can look like, what life can look like. And I appreciate you bringing it to all of us.
No, man, I appreciate the conversation. It really was a good time. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Awesome.
Great talking.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the DesuckifyWork podcast. And a huge thanks to Derek for bringing a delightfully fresh perspective on work to the show. You can follow Derek on LinkedIn and check out his site at wanderingearl.com to learn more about his life and the adventures he has in store for you. If you enjoyed the conversation and would like to explore what a more human work culture could look like, I invite you to schedule a free half-hour discovery session. Type meow in the calendar invite, and I'll also send you a free DesuckifyWork t-shirt. Bye, everyone.